Rajiv ji, you mentioned in your book that Harvard is ground zero for these social theories being developed in collaboration with Indian elites, Indian billionaires. And now more than ever, the Gen Z are essentially opting to study internationally, right? In Ivy Leagues and international universities abroad. So what do you think, what will the impact be if this continues to end up happening on the mindset of these Indian students who are going abroad and studying?
So, firstly, I would separate STEM education. Luckily, we have a lot of bright people who study science, technology, engineering, medicine, these kind of hard sciences. And they go to places, the best places in the world, and do very well, and then they produce technology. All that is great. But people who are in the social sciences are looking, in the social sciences, you don't have really hard evidence and hard proof. It's largely a matter of opinion. If it's a consensus of opinions, then that becomes a social theory. Whereas you don't have the same thing in physics, for example. The demand for evidence, the standard for evidence is very high. So in social sciences, it tends to be whoever are the elites that make opinions, and they come up with a consensus, and that's the framework everybody is supposed to use. So there is a bandwagon effect. You follow a bandwagon. You follow trendiness. You follow fashions. And people who are not very smart are more vulnerable than intelligent people who just follow a fashion. So Harvard is a trendsetter. It's like a big brand. It's like a famous place, and you associate yourself with it. And when you are there, or don't have to be physically in Harvard, it could be any of these big universities. Basically, places like Harvard write the curriculum, they teach the main, they come up with the main theories, then other universities follow that. And so Harvard has that kind of a clout. So Indians are followers, not leaders, in thought today. We say we are Vishwa Guru, but we are actually Vishwa Chelas. We are Vishwa Chelas, and in some ways Vishwa Coolies, because we are doing a lot of the dirty work for these people. So the Vishwa Guru ought to be the leader of thought, not going to Harvard to figure out about Indian history, not going to some Ivy League to figure out about Indian psychology, Indian thought, Indian philosophy, Indian, politics. What's wrong with our society, what's wrong with women, what's wrong with our, social structure and all that. Why do we need to go there to understand ourselves? The Chinese don't send their kids to United States to figure out what's wrong in the Tibetan crisis, the Tibet or Uyghurs, or what's wrong, what's going on in Hong Kong, or are they a democracy, are they free, are they happy, not happy. I mean, Chinese have no interest in letting their kids figure out what the Americans have to say about them, because they send their kids in very large numbers to learn technology and bring back technology, sometimes steal technology. But in the case of India, there is no such guidance from the government. So kids go wherever it's fashionable. So for that to the Harvard people is a fantastic place, because it's a catchment area. You have people with rich kids who can afford to send them to such places. Otherwise, there are some financial assistance available. These people go, and a large part of the funding for places like Harvard comes out of Indians who go there. And a huge amount of money is spent. Several lakhs of Indians go overseas, and the total amount of money drained out is huge. So I wonder why the country needs others, why we need to send people there to learn about ourselves over there. I mean, it would be different if you're sending people there to learn something else that we don't have. But when you're studying about even Hindu religion, the best authorities in the world are considered to be Western scholars, Western journals, Western conferences. The Western PhDs got more value than any Indian PhD. It's actually a disgrace for the country. It's a sign of deep inferiority complex in being colonized. So the kids are basically following this system, which my generation and the generation before have created the system. It's not that kids of your generation are at fault, because it's a follower mentality, it's a bandwagon mentality. Kids in your generation don't have good options in India. We haven't created the world-class universities for our idea of social sciences. Even the social sciences being taught in India are Western social sciences. Most of the Indian history being taught in India itself are Romila Thapar type people who learned all this from overseas. So, even those who don't go to Harvard are studying the same material over here. So the aura of credibility and the adhikar, the authority with places like Harvard is huge. And so the Indians are all, wanting to show off, have a good brand value, and want to go to a famous place like that. they don't have the critical thinking skills. And the other problem is families haven't raised their kids to be able to think for themselves. It would be different if a kid who's going to Harvard would raise their hand and say, this is not true, professor, because I learned this, and here's my guru, here's my parents, and this is what I have learned, these are the texts, this is the evidence. Chinese argue back, because Chinese can say that. Muslim students argue back. You try teaching nonsense to they won't take it. They know what's wrong, and they will talk back. And then they are supported by the mosque. They can go back to their madrasa, they can call up somebody, a whole lot of people will file a petition and stand behind that student. We don't, even when a student, in a rare situation when the student stands up and says something, there's nobody behind them. I'll give you an example. A person that we both know, Ram Rani, Yvette Rosser, who just passed away, a Neem Karoli Baba follower, a very good friend of mine. I don't know if you know her story. She got her PhD at University of Texas, Austin. And when she got her PhD, I was present in a house of a friend of ours in the Bay Area, having a board meeting of the Infinity Foundation, Arjun Bhagat. And a call comes, and here is crying Yvette Rosser, saying, I'm defending my PhD, and they've told me to remove a chapter because it says favorable things, and they don't want me to say that. And she was doing her PhD on the Banaras Hindu University history of that. And she was showing in her PhD that there's no bias against minorities. It was not a chauvinistic place. It was a very objective place and a very good place. And they didn't want to have that positive stuff. They wanted her to trash Banaras Hindu University.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they wanted her to trash, and she refused to trash. She was Hindu, a white person, and she refused to trash. So she said, to ask me, should I they have said, delete certain chapters and then you can get your doctorate. Should I do that, or should I hold on to my guns? And then I said, that's a tough call you have to make. So she says, in the one hand, I'll be selling my soul. On the other hand, if I don't do it, I'll never get a PhD. So what do I do? And so she kept calling me several times. And then she had to make the call. I think she reached some kind of a compromise. She did get her PhD, but she never got a job in the academy. She never got a job in the academy. She was outcast. That's how horrible it is if you do stand up, because, I tried calling all the gurus. I supported her, but they said, the university said, who are you? You're just one person.
Yeah.
If I could have gotten something from the government, Ministry of Culture,
then they might have
silence.
changed,
They were totally silent. If I could have gotten from any of the gurus, all these famous gurus I called, none of them would stick their neck out. So who is the authority? Like in their case, in the case of a Muslim or a Jew or somebody having prejudice, they would get support from big institutions. So part of the problem is when a student of ours, the rare student who has the courage and the knowledge to speak up, does not get support. So, nobody wants to take that risk. Yeah. So the easy way out is to just go along with what they're telling you. If they're saying you got to write this way, even though it may be trash, you write that way and you get your grade and you're done. So going against the trend is very dangerous. So these are all the factors. These are all the factors that result in our students going with the flow and becoming brainwashed, becoming colonized. And every time another student is sold out, it sets precedence for the next.